Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a fresh episode of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia. Just a couple of programming notes first. We did a fresh episode of Buffon 55 yesterday, and it was a good one. So it's available on demand here on YouTube channel and wherever you get your audio podcast. Just search Barroom Network, and you'll see a list of all of our great shows, including Bar Down Hockey Talk. That was a great show about Patrick Kane in his next destination. Where is he going to play next? And then upcoming this weekend on Friday, it's one other thing, Mac and Reed. You'll also find a fresh episode from yesterday there as well. And then upcoming, we've got the Willis Twin Towers podcast on Friday. That'll be live. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get alert when that goes live. We'll be talking some Notre Dame football on Friday. And then on Sunday, our coverage starts with the Barfly Tailgate Show first thing in the morning. So those are the plugs. Let's bring in the guy, the man of the hour. He is, of course, Greg Gabriel. Greg, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
Speaking
of Patrick Kane, you know where I hope he ends up?
Buffalo Sabres.
His hometown. And I guess I read yesterday that that's one of the teams he's already been speaking to out of about 5 or 6. So that would be nice. You know, he grew up in South Buffalo. He knows my son-in-law. And, he obviously had that off-field occurrence that turned out to be total BS.
Yes, indeed.
A few years ago. But they lost their best center just a couple of days ago to an upper body injury. He's probably going to be out for 2 months. So bringing in a guy like Kane could be a help.
And that would be the perfect place for him to play his final years in the NHL, his hometown Buffalo Sabres. I'd love to see that for him too. He really is a great guy. And as any young person, he had some, encounters after night partying and so forth. But it doesn't look really like he did anything legally wrong. So he's a good guy. He's done a lot for the community here in Chicago. I wish him well, and Buffalo would be a great place for him. What about you, Greg, and the Chicago Bears? We talked after the Panthers win, and I said it was ugly, and you said, you know what? There were some good things about this win and so forth. Now that you've had some time to reflect about that Panthers victory, can you share some more of your thoughts about that win, that close win over the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with the next 8 weeks. Yeah, there's 7 games, but you got to buy in there. Mm-hmm. So, people are screaming and hollering. You see on Twitter, you got to have a new coach and all this other shit and draft so-and-so, draft this guy. And none of that's going to be determined now, but it will be determined over the course of the next 8 weeks. And I think in a number of cases, if the team has been, especially the defense, the team has been performing better over the last month on the defensive side of the ball. In fact, Jones, the defensive tackle, probably played the best ball since he came here a year ago. Mm-hmm. And now we got to get Justin Fields to play. Is Justin Fields what we saw most of year 1 and most of year 2, or is Justin Fields going to turn out to Denver and Washington?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if it's what we saw most of year 1 and most of year 2, then my gut feeling is that they will not pick up his 5th-year option. They may even try to move them, and and if they're in position, and it's way too early with 8 weeks to go in the season to figure out where you're going to end up in the draft. But,
right.
They may be in position to draft a quarterback and may end up doing that. Then you're, starting all over again. Maybe not. I think if that was the case, Bagent would be the starter while they get the other guy ready and up and going. But with the coaching staff, I think the one thing we've talked about a lot is where there's been fans who've said the team has quit on the coaches. It's very obvious on the field that the players have not quit on the coaches.
Right.
They work hard. And so I think not only wins and losses, but how the players play in these last 7 games is going to be a determining factor on if there's a coaching change. Now there could be a lot of different things. You could say, okay, look at Poles and Flus and could have a meeting at the end of the season, and Poles could say, look, I want you around, but you got to make some changes, and I think you need to make a change here, here, and here. And sometimes coaches balk at that because they're loyal to their own staff, and then you're causing a situation where you have to let a guy go. So
yeah, exactly. And with the 2 assistant coaches who have been released because of HR type issues, Eberflus has less of, I would say, less power to say something negative regarding any changes to his coaching staff.
Well, that's a definite mark against him.
There you go.
It has to be, but in the case of Williams, he worked with the guy for 4 years in Indianapolis, and there was never an inkling of anything.
Right.
And then with the running back coach, I think he's fairly new with Flus. That might, he sounds like who knows what happened? Sounds like he's an abusive person. And, HR got involved and he's gone. But yeah, I mean, you got 2 positions you're going to fill right there, but there might be a few more you got to fill. And, depending on who plays, how well each position group plays. Now, in saying all that, how about this? This is the first game since the opening of training camp that the projected starting lineup is just about intact.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
On defense, the only, Tremaine Edmonds is out, with a knee. He'll probably be questionable by the end of the week. But, Sanborn does more than his fair share to fill in. He's outstanding. And then the difference on offense is they had penciled in Cody Whitehair. Well, Cody Whitehair played himself out of a job, because he still had snapping problems, and Patrick hasn't played that bad. So you're going to have like across the front, Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Patrick, Nate Davis, and Wright. And it's the first game all year that they've had that.
Yeah.
So that could make a difference because you might get some continuity. So, I'm kind of excited to see what happens this game. I shouldn't have a good feeling, but I kind of do have a good feeling about this game. I think Detroit's like, we're going to blow these people out, and it's going to be a little bit closer than I think.
Yeah, I posted on the Barroom Network's X account a video of Dan Campbell talking about the possibility of this being a trap game and what he's been urging his players to study the tape and see that the Bears play with a lot of aggression. They don't give up. They keep coming. They have a lot of talent and so forth. And so he is aware that some of his players might be taking this Bears team lightly, considering that they scored 72 points against the Bears in their 2 games last year, Greg. And so those players might be thinking, these guys are going to be easy. Well, that's not the case. This is a different Bears team, especially on defense, right, Greg?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, the defense as a whole is playing a lot better, but in just 2 games, Martez Sweat has made a huge difference. Now, granted, he doesn't have a sack, but it's because of his presence. It's what the other people have been allowed to do.
Yeah.
And now on top of that, you get your secondary is healthy for the first time all year. You got your regular starters in there, all 5. And who had probably the game of his career last week was Kyler Gordon. Kyler Gordon was outstanding last week.
He really was.
So I think, I'm always positive. So, I'm until I see the worst, I'm going to think the best.
Yeah, I love that positivity. We really need it in this stage of our Bears fandom because there's just so much negativity. I know fans are frustrated. I'm frustrated. But why keep watching if you don't have hope, right? I've got questions from OKC Bear Boy, Chris Watts, Free Palestine. Keep them coming, and I'll get to them shortly. Greg, Justin Fields met with the media yesterday. I've got a couple of sound bites. This was him asking how close he was to playing against the Panthers and what he's looking forward to doing in the next 7 games.
I wanted to play, but the head trainer said it was my best, probably for the best for the future, long term. To just wait it out 1 more week, especially, coming off a short week and stuff like that. And, if it would have got hit or something like that, it probably would have postponed it another 2 or 3 weeks. So, yeah.
Are you looking at these next 7 games any differently for you, even if thinking big picture of the evaluation of what the Bears are doing for you as a quarterback, or are you just kind of approaching them, okay, let's just try to win out these last 7 games?
No, I mean, it just starts with Sunday and just taking it day by day. So, yeah, I mean, that's my focus right now is just, focusing on Sunday, get prepared for that, going out there, playing hard, playing to the best of my ability.
Greg, you've been inside tons of locker rooms. You've seen quarterbacks with hand injuries. And have you ever seen a quarterback have a kind of a similar thumb injury that gripping the football could be an issue? And if so, tell us your recollection.
I don't recall on a thumb to be specific, but it's like the major digit when you're throwing a football. So
I think, yeah.
One good blow there could knock him right back out. So there's a couple things though. Like I think it was Courtney, asked him about, how you looking at this as part of the future and all that. And he says, hey, I'm just taking a game at a time. That's BS. He knows damn well that he's trying, number one, to get the Bears to pick up the 5th-year option on his contract, or number 2, get a contract extension. These 7 games mean everything to Justin Fields. So if he doesn't perform, my gut feeling is you won't see him here next year.
Wow. There you go. That's a commercial for X. I'm going to put that in. Very provocative statement you just said. By the way, Mike Ibsen reminded us that Jay Cutler broke his thumb, didn't he, in that one season that we were headed to the Super Bowl. We were playing so well, and then I guess
that was after I was gone.
Okay.
And I know some of the story behind that, and he had a broken thumb. He was supposed to he had surgery set up with the hand surgeon, who's one of the most renowned hand surgeons in the Chicago area, downtown. Not going to mention his name, but he happened to operate on both of my thumbs, so I know him well.
So I would say.
They had a surgery set up, and Cutler blew him off and went out to Colorado and had some other guy do it. And then there was questions of whether it was really a great surgery.
Interesting. Well, I hope that Fields is ready to rock and roll. I do have one more soundbite, and really, I forgot to label it, and so I don't know what he's saying here. But let's listen to Justin Fields on Wednesday's press conference.
Yeah, I mean, of course, when I was out, I was trying to, just be the same leader I was when I was playing. Helping Tyson out with, anything he asked for. I would, write extra notes about, scouting reports on DBs and safeties and linebackers and stuff, and just send it to him. But yeah, and just being on the sidelines, I feel like you look at the game from a different perspective, and just kind of seeing the game from a different view. So definitely learned a lot from just being on the sideline and just really just looking at the game from the sideline, just body language, just different alignment cells and stuff like that. So yeah.
Is there anything you need to be cognizant of if you get hit or sacked about protecting your hand?
Just protect the ball. That's number one. So if my hand gets hurt in the process, as long as the ball protected, that's all that matters. But
I love that response. Just protect the ball. I'm not worried about my hand. That was instinctive. So that was really nice.
Right. And he's got those attributes that we have seen throughout his career, short career, 2.5-year career, moments of absolute brilliance. And then we have seen moments of what the fuck, and so you go back to the Washington game. What was it? He started off the game with 17 completions in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, He was on fire.
Right, awesome.
Reach, getting the ball out of his hand. That's what you want to see again. What was disheartening is that the following week then, and they're at home, he lays an egg before he hurts his arm or hand.
Interesting. Got to ask you this question. I know we've talked about it before, but sometimes our thoughts change a little bit. When evaluating Justin Fields, you have to start with evaluating with what he's been asked to do. So I think the $1 million question here is there a good marriage between the offensive scheme that Luke Getsy runs and the physical and athletic attributes that Justin Fields has? I mean, when Justin Fields came out of college, he was billed as a pocket passer. Well, I don't think he in the NFL has been proven himself to be truly a pocket passer. I know a lot of people in the chat room are going to say, well, the offensive line this, offensive line that. No, he's not a pocket passer. So do you in this evaluation process that's coming up here, do you start with Luke Getsy or do you go immediately to player personnel and then think about the coaching staff?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that go into that. And part of it is when Bagent was playing, teams didn't know what Bagent could do or couldn't do. There wasn't any tape on him. Right. So, how good an athlete is he? How fast is he? Whatever. So you could do some things with him. And they did a lot of rollouts, both to the left and to the right, thrown on the run, and had success with them. With Fields, most of the time, especially this season, you have had a guy mirroring him who and makes a lot of those plays that much more difficult. So, to answer the question fairly, is the defense doing a good job taking away what Justin Fields can do? And that is get out on the perimeter, make a good throw on the run, play with a half field, or take off. But when he's got a shadow on him all the time, it makes him a lot difficult. Well, Bagent never had a shadow. They just tried to blitz the shit out of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. All right, let's get to some of the questions here. I don't want them to pile up too much. OKC Baby Boy or Bear Boy says, first question is 5-2 over the last 7 games. Is that too much to ask to save Flus's job? In other words, if Flus goes 5-2 over the last 7 games, Flus is guaranteed his job, particularly based on what Ryan Poles said about his head coach 2 or 3 weeks ago in that press conference. Probably,
Well, I think that was 2 weeks ago, and that
Okay.
told me a lot.
Okay.
That press conference told me a lot. So I don't know what the record's got to be, but if the team, if he in fact loses the team, and the team's not showing improvement, and they're basically treading water, then you're going to have to make a move. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, but here's what happens when you make a move: bringing in a new coach. So you're going to have a new scheme on offense, a new scheme on defense. You've got a lot of these players that are fits for the scheme they got. Are they going to be fits for the next scheme? Okay, and then you got to start flipping out players again. So there's a lot more to the equation than people think about. So you got to think, okay, I want to run something similar so it won't screw up the players. And if Flus is going to be here, you're going to run pretty much the same defense. If my favorite to be a head coach, if they made one, is Dan Quinn in Dallas right now. That's not going to be a whole lot different than what you're seeing right now. So right. It's just how the players fit within the scheme.
Mm-hmm. You said earlier about the players playing hard for Eberflus and that he hasn't lost the team. There's some talk in the chat about that, and I'll encapsulate it this way. Have you ever been a part of a team where the players were still playing hard, but you heard or overheard them complaining about the coaching staff, complaining about decisions that were made by the decision makers, just being upset that the team's leadership was not doing things to help win the teams, to win games, but they still went out in the field and played super hard?
It's a hard question. I'm going to say, as a player, and I started playing when I was 8 and I finished when I was 31,
mm-hmm.
I would say yes to that.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, you're playing for yourself. You're playing for your own pride.
Right.
And as far as, like backstabbing the coach or whatever, again, when I was a player, yes. Since I've been in the league, I can't say yes on that definitively, only because you're not around the players as much in those private settings where that would be said. So, could they question some calls? Absolutely, they could. Chase Claypool did. Where's she?
Yeah, caught one pass with the Dolphins so far, but he's blocking better.
I'll tell you what, the whole thing, I didn't think it was a bad trade. I still don't think it was a bad trade because that guy's got talent up the yin yang.
Yes, he does.
Okay, from the neck up, he's missing a whole lot. Like maybe the whole left side of his brain or something, because there's something screwy there.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some more questions as they continue to pile up. I really appreciate it, guys. Chris is asking, do you think the improvement of the defense is the one thing that's going to save Matt Eberflus's job?
Well, I'll go back to what I've been saying most of the show. I'm not so certain he's going to get fired. I think, it's got to play out. You're not firing him on the record today. If you're going to fire a guy, you're going to fire him on his record after 17 games.
Right.
And so it's how's the team playing? The improvement, if there's an improvement, it's a combination. It's a combination of how's the team playing, how's the defense playing, because he's running the defense right now.
Right.
How's Fields playing? Because I think if Field bombs, I think they'd give him a minimum 3 games, And if he plays lousy in those 3 games, it wouldn't shock me to see him make a change.
Yeah. Well, and so offensive coordinator would be one of those changes. And so John is asking, is there a chance that Pep Hamilton, who is a fan favorite, is a favorite from the fans here in Chicago, that he might come back and be the offensive coordinator? I would bet that at least he would be granted an interview, right, Greg?
Well, he was interviewed the last time.
Right.
You know, so but Flus particularly wanted that Green Bay, San Francisco, LA scheme, and Pep's is not like that. Hey, I can't say enough good things about Pep Hamilton. You know, we had him on the show. He's a great guy, and I'd love to see it, but that doesn't mean that the people in Hallis Hall want him to be the guy.
Right. Good point. Okay, Free Palestine is asking, Greg, can you see Poles trading the first pick for assets and getting a quarterback once this roster is complete? Maybe rebuild like Philadelphia and Kansas City did. I like this question, Greg, because I
totally understand it.
Well, this draft, there's going to be like 7 quarterbacks. 2 of them are going to go in the first 3 picks. And then some of these other guys like J.J. McCarthy of Michigan, mid to late first rounder, might even fall to the second rounder, Penix. Some of these other guys are second round picks. So I think the question is, can you see the Bears trading the first overall pick, getting tons of picks, and then focusing in on a quarterback, mid to late first round talent value, I should say, and then bringing him to camp and having him compete versus Fields and Bagent?
I can only say what I do. Okay. And what I would do if I made up my mind that Justin Fields is not the guy, and I don't think Tyson Bagent can be the guy, and I have one of those first 2 picks, I'm taking a quarterback. Okay, I don't think you have any choice. I think if Fields comes out and plays like he did in those 2 games, that changes the equation. Now I think you're going to see that pick getting traded. You know, and they'll keep the second of the picks, and to stockpile, because they had to give away a second round pick to get Montez Sweat. So you want to recoup that. You want to probably pick up another number 1 for next year. So he's going to have a lot of options. But until we get to the end of the season and figure out, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. Let's play the thing out. I don't like to speculate on unknowns. And part of it is because I've lived this life. I've been in the building with the gun to your head, and I know what it's like, and I feel awful for the families of guys like Flus and stuff like that, who they got to listen to this. I mean, there was a couple disparaging things written about me once, and like the next day my wife goes into work and all these people come up to her, what's going on with your husband and all this, so it's I don't give a shit, because that's the one writer's opinion, but it has an effect on other people, and that's tough. And I don't think fans really understand it. I don't think they care. They just want to win or lose, but there's a human side to it. And do you think these guys want to go out and lose every freaking week? Hell no. They're busting their butt to win.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, Greg, because we as fans are guilty of treating these fellow human beings so disrespectfully, because we want our team to win so much. We the common courtesy we pay to our neighbors, our friends, our family, it doesn't extend to coaches and managers and players. And that's just ridiculous. We need to do better. I'm glad that you said that. Having said that, our next question is about firing Eberflus. Have you heard anything about, and all of the dealings that you have with people around the league, text messages, phone calls, emails, and so forth? And what are you hearing about Matt Eberflus as a coach? Let me remold the question that way. What are you hearing about him as a head coach?
I got a DM this morning from a guy, and he said, like Peter King and Albert Greer are saying that Flus is really on the hot seat. Okay. And you look at the record and you say, okay, that's got to be a given. But then a couple weeks ago, let's say going into the Washington game, Peter King also said on ESPN 1000 that if the Bears don't win this game in Washington, my gut feeling is he's going to get fired after the Washington game. Well, I've known Peter a long time. So I sent Peter a text and I said, Peter, is this something you know or something you're guessing? And he said, 100% guessing.
Okay.
So that's what a lot of these guys, they write for clicks, so it's speculation and you just don't know. And I listening to polls, very seldom do you see general managers talk during the season. You've seen polls twice this year, and he was very emotional in that last one. And so that tells me that, and maybe that's to his own detriment. You can look at it from both sides, but that tells me that there's, a little bit more to the big picture than we're privy to, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that observation. More questions. King Pookie Nation is wondering, what is the deal with Velus Jones? Are we cutting him? It looks like Khalil Herbert is close to coming back from injury. There'll be a spot necessary. Do you see Velus being cut and then maybe returning on the practice squad?
I don't know who they're going to cut. They're heavy at the wide receiver position, but they'll also be heavy at the running back position. Because they brought in Evans,
right? Who's played well.
So that could go too. I mean, they got him off the street or off a practice squad. So it's my experience says they're going to give Velus every chance he can get because he's got talent. He's got natural talent. And that if Khalil is ready to play, that one of the other running backs will be let go, or maybe somebody will get a mysterious injury and get put on IR or something like that.
Getting back to this coaching question, Ron's got an interesting question. Does it make sense to keep changing the coaching staff every few years when the owners and management are the real problem? Well, I wouldn't say that the owners and management are a real problem. Maybe they've made some mistakes in who they've hired to be the coaching staff, but there is something to say for continuity and to give the head coach the benefit of the doubt, even after two horrendous seasons in terms of one-loss record. And so I saw David Haw talk about this, the WSCR 670 morning host, along with Mully. And he said, this has to stop at a certain point. You need to give a head coach a certain amount of time to get his system in there with players and so forth. It's painful for us fans to go through this losing, but perhaps Eberflus can grow into the job. And once he gets a really excellent roster, all of a sudden we're winning more games than we're losing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I rarely agree with David, but
I know.
no, and I like David. David is a good guy, but there's a lot to that. Now, my personal opinion of Ryan Poles is he's young, he's learning as he goes along, but he's not going to be just a good GM. He's going to be a great GM. Just watching how he sticks to his principles, he sticks to his plan. I'm not overpaying anybody. I got a dollar figure. That's what the figure is. If you want more, then I'm sorry, you're not going to play here, because I'm not going to, just to keep one player, I'm not going to destroy the salary cap structure of our whole football team. So from that standpoint, I like it. Did he hire the right guy? I think it's too early to say. We all got to admit that injuries have played a lot into this shitty early, first half of the season. I mean, like I said, this is the first game when pretty much what was supposed to be the starting lineup is going to be playing together.
Yeah.
And that goes back to preseason even.
I don't want to overlook this question from Dented Fender, and I wish I would have spotted it earlier when we were talking about Pep Hamilton. Dented Fender, because I really want to know the answer to this question. What is Pep Hamilton's scheme? And so if for some reason he were hired as the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, what would we be looking at? Would we be looking at a heavy play action team? Because that's sort of my memory of him.
Well, when Pep was here, he was a quarterback coach. So it was Ron Turner's scheme.
That is right.
Okay. But then Pep went out to Stanford and was under Coach Shaw. And he learned the Stanford system. And the Stanford system, which was, of course, you had one of the best quarterbacks in college football history in Andrew Luck playing quarterback for him. But that system basically had, for every play call, there's two plays. So there is a pass or a run, and you make that determination at the line of scrimmage. So you're going with A or B for, to try to make it simple, to simplify what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
He then, Andrew gets drafted by the Colts, and the Colts do the smart thing, and they bring his OC from Stanford, and he put up some huge numbers. And he was basically using a lot of that system, but he's always added to it. He gets new thoughts, and he's very, very good at, from what I've seen now, the last time I worked with him was 2020 in the XFL, where we had to switch quarterbacks in the middle of the year, totally different kinds of quarterbacks, and he totally changed the offense. Now, you're not changing play calls, you're changing how you're running a certain play.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
And Pep will play to the strengths of his players. He likes the run game. He likes to toss it too now, but he's one, I think he's a brilliant man. In fact, he should have been a head coach a long time ago, and he was using the XFL to be a springboard, and then the whole thing folded.
Unfortunately.
So you can't get me to say a bad word about him. So, but that's what I can tell you. It's really a multi-offense. I don't think it's that difficult to learn. I mean,
you do have.
Go ahead.
You do. I was just going to say, in a multiple offense like that, where the players have to make decisions during the play, right? you got to have, players who are receptive and are really good learners, and then take what they learn in the classroom out to the field, as opposed to certain offenses where it's a little bit more freelancing.
Yeah, but I'll say this, and I'll go back to the XFL, because we're getting, I mean, it's like first year of existence. We never practiced together until the first week of December.
Wow.
They had 3 weeks of practice in December, and that was without pads. That was just like OTA type thing.
Yeah.
Then they were off for a couple of weeks. Then we go down to Houston they had the whole league there for training camp, and 3 more weeks, then we got to play a game.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, he had 6 weeks to put an offense in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to construct it in such a way that that your players can comprehend it and be efficient with it.
Good stuff, Greg. Eric just put up, anyone catch the interview yesterday from the Panthers talking about how they had a 3-way trade set up with the Texans for the number 1 pick, but Houston backed out last second? I did not hear that. I'll look for that.
I did hear that.
Yeah. So the Bears were not involved.
Well, the Bears were involved. Were involved. Where I think Houston was going to number 1. Chicago's. The guy explained that Chicago's going to number 2 or something, or maybe Chicago is still going to number 9 and Carolina was coming to 2, but they would have picked up more picks.
I see. Carolina would have.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, I'll look for that. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. Got some more good questions here. Tony the Pod Boss says, Greg, have you ever been a part of a team that does anonymous player questionnaires? That seems to be a big thing now. All right, guys, let's get your thoughts, candid thoughts on what's going on with the organization. And if you want to provide those thoughts anonymously, we've set up this system, blah, blah, blah. And if you have been involved with something like that, Greg, tell us a little bit about your experience with that.
No, I haven't.
What about from the coaching? You were gonna
my
say
wife has where she works.
Okay.
I have not seen that at all in any time. You develop relationships with certain players.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's certain players that when there's a problem, they'll come to you.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, hey, look, this is what's going on. You need to we'll try to fix it in the locker room, because the players like to police their own locker room. And, we'll fix that, but you got to be aware of it. And that has happened to me. And where players have come to me and then I went to Jerry. So, and of course the player knew damn well I was going to go to Jerry with it. That's why he told me. So,
interesting.
So, but it was his way of saying, there's some fucked up things here. We got to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mike Ibsen has an interesting question, one that I've thought of, because since the arrival of Phil Snow as the senior defensive analyst, the Bears defense has played better. So do you think Phil Snow's arrival has helped Flus? Seems like his arrival coincided with Flus calling plays. So I'm not sure if it's all Flus or if Snow is helping him switch things up a bit. Your thoughts?
Well, I believe he's only been here 2 weeks.
No,
maybe 3, maybe 3.
Maybe you're right.
Because he was hired. He said, we're looking for an analyst. It took a week and a half to hire that analyst. And
it's been a month since the announcement, Greg. 1 month, October 16th, and today's November 16th.
Okay, so there's been 4 games. So yeah, what this guy is doing. the pro personnel department, goes out and does advanced scouting, but those guys are really looking at the personnel of the other team and maybe what the substitutions are, and the value of the player. Is that making sense? This guy can be really good. This guy is weak, whatever. Okay. My thought when he hired this guy was to be more analytical and look at scheme and how to attack the scheme and defense the scheme to help. And so he's supposed to be a week ahead. So last week, during when we were playing Carolina, he was already working on Detroit.
Gotcha. So he would be working right now on the Vikings.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And speaking of the Vikings, how is this? They had a quarterback out of nowhere, and the guy's like, ready to be thrown.
It's amazing. Now, I got to believe that Dobbs is the pronunciation of his last name.
Yeah.
That he is such a smart guy. I mean, an IQ near 200.
He literally is a rocket scientist.
Yeah, exactly. I got to believe that that's helped him tremendously, absorb the play calling, because I'm the type of guy, if you're going to teach me something, you got to repeat it. And finally, okay, I got it. This guy, you tell him once and he's got it. And now he's able to execute it right away. I mean, for him to come in midweek and lead his team to victory is a testament to just how smart he is. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I think that my personal feeling is that cools off.
Yeah.
Because
sure,
now you're going to have a couple games of tape. See what he does well, see what he doesn't do well. And then you're going to work, try to work against that.
Yeah. Staying on the Snow topic, Phil Snow, Jeff is asking a question. Do you think that Snow is eventually hired as a defensive coordinator if Flus is in head coach in 2024? I got to believe he's the top candidate, given that he's got the pedigree. He's done it before in the NFL. He would be a top candidate to take over as DC, don't you think?
Yeah, I would think he'd be a top candidate, but I can't tell you for sure that that's going to be the guy. I mean, first of all, it's what kind of job is he doing the job that Flus wants him to do? Well, right now, the what we've seen on the field says yes. So could he be that guy? Yeah, he could be, but it's almost an impossible question to answer because there's just too many variables we don't know about.
Indeed. Got a great question here from Jay Sanders. And I totally agree with the thought that it's going to be very difficult to judge Eberflus's defense until he gets his 3 tech. Do you think that is a fair statement?
No, because he's not running it the way Lovey ran it, and everybody thinks of the 3 tech. Everybody thinks that the 3 tech has got to be Tommy Harris.
Right.
There's only one of those, or a couple of those other guys, John Randall. Those are rare. Those are Hall of Fame type individuals. And
yes,
Tommy,
indeed.
if he could play. Now you look at the guy he had in Indianapolis, who was damn good. They traded for from San Francisco. He's 6'7", 305, 310 pounds, and runs a 5'1". But he can clog up the middle. In fact, size-wise, he's like Dexter. Dexter would be a baby, and Dexter runs faster.
Yeah.
And they've been playing Dexter more at the 1 in pass rush situations in recent weeks. But I don't want to take anything away from Jones because like I said earlier in the show, the last 3 to 4 weeks, he's played his best football, and not by a little, by a lot.
Yes, he's improved dramatically. Yeah.
And part of that is probably the competition he's getting from the young guys.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at it too, when you look at the snap counts, they're trusting him because he's getting a good number of snaps. He's getting penetration. He's gotten some sacks. He's getting pressures, getting tackles for losses. And part of it, we never talk about this, but you go back, this defense, the defensive line as a whole, actually the whole front seven.
Mm-hmm.
None of these guys ever played together until training camp. And in training camp, a lot of them were hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You brought in a new Mike linebacker and Tremaine Edmonds. You brought in JT to be the will linebacker. You brought in a new nose tackle in Billings. You brought in Ngakoue at the end of training camp. You traded for Sweat. Who's ever played with each other before?
Interesting, indeed. Yeah.
Okay, so now that's part of that is learning. What's the word I want? Just how to play with the guy next to you, what we can do together. So, you can do some things like, literally make up stuff along the way. Kurt Beck, I tell you what, let's do this. Boom, boom, boom. And it works. And it works because they know each other well enough, physical talent wise, to be able to do it.
Yeah. D. Starin says they need more practice together, and that is indeed the case. You need continuity in a football team, and it's hard, of course, in today's free agency world, but as much as you can get in terms of practicing with fellow co-starters, the much better it helps. Josh Brown reminds us about Henry Melton. He was a good 3-tech as well.
Henry Melton was drafted as a defensive end.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes. Okay. And Henry Melton was started off at Texas as a running back, and he was a real good one. Like he had like a freshman year when he ran for over 1,000 yards. Then the next year he wasn't quite as good, and he got a little heavier. So they moved him over to defense, and he played defensive end. He played defensive end for 2 years, and he had never really played defense, and he showed a lot of talent. But when we got him then, and you get him in the bod pod, and you find out what he could be, you're saying, this ain't an end. This is a 3-tech. It's going to take a year, but, so he played. But by the time we drafted him, he was like 260, 263, something like that. And by his second year, he was 295.
And so that sparks a question in my mind. You get a player, you draft him, he's supposed to play one position, you move him to another. You talked about perhaps a guy like J. Tyree Carter, taking a look at him at center and snapping the ball. Another name that came up recently, I saw on X, I think it was from Alexis Jade. It could have been from somebody else. What about Tevin Jenkins at center? Would you even consider something like that?
No, I think he's too good at guard.
Oh, he's tremendous at guard.
Now he got his ass handed to him a couple times last week
in the pass game. Yes.
That Brown is one of the top 3 or 4 defensive tackles in football.
Yes.
So it was a learning lesson for him. But Tevin's almost 6'6".
Yeah, that's tall for center, right?
Carter is just over 6'3", very athletic. We'll repeat. He was a point guard in high school that got D1 offers. That tells you his athleticism. This is me thinking out loud. I'd be right now in practice having him take some snaps at center, just so he gets used to it, and then all off season do it, because you want to have the best 5, and you can't tell me that he didn't play pretty good in the games he played.
Interesting. Yeah.
But can he make a switch? Because, it's not an easy job. I mean, obviously you got to get the snap right, but you got to make the line calls And so you got to be alert. Now, you don't necessarily have to. You can have a guard do that. And in Nate Davis, you got a very experienced guy who is very capable of making line calls too, but you prefer the center to make all the line calls.
Indeed. Great question here from Eric. He reminds me to talk to you about Ken Dorsey. He asked, maybe the Bears need to hire Ken Dorsey as a senior offensive coordinator, but I want to get your thoughts.
I'd hire him to clean out the washroom, maybe.
That's what I wanted to find out. What are your thoughts on Dorsey? You don't like him, obviously.
I have never been impressed with Ken Dorsey.
Really?
I mean, yeah. And it's like he was, a decent quarterback in college. Didn't do anything when he got to our level. And then he started off as a pro scout. And somehow got elevated to an assistant type thing, worked his way up to quarterback coach. To me, it was all Brian Daboll. And when Daboll left, Dorsey he doesn't have Daboll's brain. And when Daboll left, Dorsey was left on funk. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of things he can do well, but I sure as hell don't want him being my offensive coordinator. He got one of the best damn quarterbacks in the league, and he got a great wide receiver crew, and they suck right now.
Yeah. Eric says that Josh Allen said that Dorsey wouldn't have been fired if we played better. Well, maybe they would have played better if they would have relied more on their run game. And
there's a little side story to that now. Okay. Josh Allen kind of lobbied because he had a good relationship with Dorsey was his position coach.
Yeah.
And he lobbied a little bit for him when Daboll went to the Giants. So but I think that McDermott did what he had to do. Because, I get my kids go to the games, all the Bills games. And this was a couple of weeks ago. And my daughter, Kelsey, goes, she's probably shooting me for saying this. She sends me a text. She goes, who hired that goddamn offensive coordinator and who can fire him?
That's hilarious. Is that the oldest one?
No, that's the younger one. They're only 13 months apart.
Oh, okay. That's funny. All right. This is an interesting question because I've seen this floating around social media, and maybe after you answer this question, it'll even get hotter on social media. There's been speculation that if the Bills do not make the playoffs this season, that they might start over and actually look for suitors for Josh Allen. So if you're the Chicago Bears and you want to bring in a new quarterback, would you even entertain the idea of coming up with a deal to bring Josh Allen to the Chicago Bears?
I can't even remotely think that he'd be that he'd be a player they'd want to part ways with.
Even if they looked at Caleb Williams as the next savior, and they wanted to move to a younger quarterback,
they're not going to get a shot at Caleb Williams.
Well, if they trade with the Bears and the Bears trade the Panthers pick, there's a chance of that.
Yeah, I don't know. That I think it's too far fetched. The Bills do have some serious cap problems going into next year. I read yesterday they have that as it stands right now, they're $24 million over the cap for next year on the projected cap for next year. So there's gonna be some guys let go and some haircuts. Josh, the hell of a player. He gets a little wild at times.
Sure does.
Excuse me. But I think some of it is he tries to do too much. They don't have a good running game, which hurts him a little bit. But
Mhm.
I mean, I'd love to have the guy, and he's still young. I think he's
Mhm.
28 years old, but I just can't picture that ever happening.
Yeah. It's a strange world in the NFL. You never know what can happen. I want to
I
bring
can
up
see
this.
guys going from that team and good
Yeah.
players going. You know, like they could re-sign Tremaine. They wanted to re-sign Tremaine. They couldn't because they couldn't
Right.
afford him.
Right.
You know, and there'll be good players next year that are going to be available in free agency because they can't, or they'll be cut because of cap casualties, and they'll be
Right.
street free agents.
I don't have their schedule in front of me, but the Bills have a tough schedule, if I recall correctly, ahead of them at 5-5. Do you think they're going to make the playoffs?
They got to win every game, I think.
Yeah,
You know,
just about.
Just about. And who do they got this week?
Let me pull it up here.
I don't think this
Buffalo.
week's.
Bills schedule. Looks like they've got the Jeepers. They've got the Jets, and then that's followed by the Eagles, the Chiefs.
Okay, they got the Jets at home.
Yeah, the Jets at home.
Jets, okay, they lost to the Jets in a close game on opening night, Monday night. If I was a bettor, I'd go and bet a lot of money on that money and take the Bills.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting.
And the Chiefs, where are they playing? Where are they playing the Chiefs? Every year of the season, they play them in Kansas City.
Again in KC on December 10th.
That's fish.
Yeah, and at Philadelphia, November 26th.
Well, no, they might be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and then they play at home against the Cowboys, and then go to LA to play the Chargers in what will definitely be a shootout. Interesting. Well, I know how much you love the Bills, so I'll be pulling for them. And I want to ask you this because
I did just interrupt you. My son-in-law brought me this hoodie.
Uh-huh.
It was a red hoodie with the embroidered Bills helmet on it, but with the old logo, which was
nice.
Remember the standing buffalo?
Yes.
It's really sweet.
Wear that next week. That is nice. I want to ask you this because, people are always talking about this, and I hope that you have some insider information on this. C-Sharp he's asking your opinion. Was Eberflus forced upon Poles because he was interviewed before Poles was hired? The way I remember it was that Bill Polian had interviewed Eberflus, the search committee interviewed Eberflus, and so he was part of the 3 candidates that they handed over to Poles, but told Poles, you can bring in whoever you want. It's your decision. But there's been speculation that Eberflus was forced upon Poles, perhaps because of the Colts connection with Polian and Flus. Your thoughts?
I don't know if there was much of a connection between Polian and Flus because Polian wasn't there with Flus.
Right.
Could it be? Yes. Do I know that for sure? No. I know for sure John Fox was forced on Ryan Pace. That was a given. But that was because it was a veteran coach and a rookie GM. One of the things you had going on here is that, and it shouldn't make a difference, and maybe it didn't make a difference, but both Flus and Poles have the same agent. And, could that play into it? I don't know. But
interesting.
My guy right now, I think the best and I haven't delved into it to really look at it, but I think Dan Quinn deserves another chance.
Yeah.
And when you look at the staff he put together, because a lot of it's about the staff he put together, and you look at the staff he put together in Atlanta, that was an all-star staff. Shanahan was his coordinator. LaFleur was
awesome.
his quarterback. Chris Morgan, who's the Bears' offensive line coach, was his line coach. I mean, he had some damn good coaches there.
Yeah, I think the biggest blemish with Quinn, being a head coach is that so many fans remember that Super Bowl debacle, up by 30 plus points, and his team, the Falcons, blow that lead. But
Shit happens.
shit happens even in a Super Bowl game. J2K wants to know, how is Dorian Williams playing in Buffalo? I really liked him coming on. Is Dorian Williams, what position does he play? I'm forgetting who he is.
I think he's a backup. I don't hear the name that much.
Yeah. Okay. Greg, this from Jeff Willis. Do you think the defense? Let's talk about the Bears and Lions. Do you think the defense will be able to tackle Montgomery this week? I'm sure he will be running with purpose this week. Dude may have the strongest legs I've ever seen. He has, along with Roquan Smith. Yes, he is healthy. He and Jahmyr Gibbs accounted for 200 yards rushing against the Chargers, and Montgomery had a 75-yard run and showed. Occasionally he would show speed on a long run when he was with the Bears. He showed that against the Chargers.
Well, he's not a fast guy. He ran close to 4.6.
Yeah, but sometimes, yes, exactly.
He's got play speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does exactly.
Son is doing a number to my thing here. I gotta see if I can turn this.
You look
I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, it helps a little.
Okay.
Nice backlight on you. It looks very creative. And we see more of your bookshelves and artwork. That piece over behind your right shoulder.
This one here?
No, let me see. Hold on. Let me get rid of this.
Yeah, that one right there.
Yeah, that one. That one, yes.
Yeah, my wife picked that out. I don't know what the hell it is. She picks out all the artwork.
I love it.
I'm gonna tell you what. Now she found this guy. There's an art studio in Libertyville, and so we'd stop in there periodically, and they had a lot of paintings by this guy named Lev Kubilov, Russian immigrant. Okay. She loves some of them. I got her one of them for Christmas one year. Mm-hmm. We got 6 or 7 pieces of his now.
Nice.
But it got to a point where the lady at the store really screwed up. And because Robin asked, how do you get a hold of him? She goes, well, he lives in Mundelein. And she gave his number. So Robin called this guy. We ended up getting 3 pieces from him right at his house. He works right out of his house. And he half the cost of what you paid at the art gallery because there's no markup. She's got him doing sketches of her employees for Christmas and stuff. The guy's really, really talented. But a lot of the pictures are old Russian landscapes like Moscow in winter and stuff like that, because that's where he grew up, and it's really good stuff.
Yeah, that's great. I'll text me the number of that art guy. We're doing some renovation work in the near future, hopefully, here in the house, and so we want to get some new pieces and stuff. Back to the Lions. We got a guy in the chat room named Lions Guy, and he says, I can't believe you Bears guys underestimated David Montgomery. I don't think the Bears ever, and the fans, I know, me as a fan, I loved David Montgomery, loved his attitude.
He's 100% wrong on that. The Bears loved him. They didn't want to pay him what he wanted to get paid.
Right.
Being that he had a bunch of injuries, and it was going into a second contract. It's just, hey, that's the nature of being a running back in the National Football League right now.
Right.
They had a figure they'd go. It's the same with Roquan. They had a figure they'd go to, and then after that, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm not even going to post
you
what
agree or disagree.
And the thing is, that Montgomery and Gibbs, both of them are excellent running backs. I loved Gibbs coming out of Alabama and was hoping that he would fall to the Bears in the second round. I thought he would, because he reminds me a little bit of Marshall Faulk with his dual, his catching and his running and the speed and the burst and all that. But the fact that those two guys are playing behind what is clearly the best offensive line in football, that's helped them tremendously. If Deontay Foreman or Roshan Johnson or Khalil Herbert were running behind that offensive line, they'd be putting up huge numbers too. You agree with that, Greg?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Deontay Foreman's played pretty good now since he got a chance to
He
play.
is. Well, the Bears' offensive line isn't too bad either, right?
No, and now they're going to be. They should be even better this year or this week. So, the only worry I got is they got the pass rusher who's going to be over right in pass rush situations, and that's going to be a
Hutchinson.
tough. That's going to be a tough matchup for him. But other than that, I think looking across, the matchups could be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But to that listener's original question, I don't think the Bears undervalued him at all. It was a matter of dollar and cents.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think it's the same thing is going to be the fate of Darnell Mooney. Mooney will probably not be re-signed because some team is going to offer him more than the Bears will. You agree with that?
I don't know if I agree with that one because I think he's really liked within the organization.
Yeah,
and
but
you've got
Montgomery was too.
Yeah, I know that, but I don't think he hasn't put up the numbers in the last 2 years because he got hurt last year and then this year to really say, I want 15, 17, $18 million. I mean, if somebody wanted to give him that, go ahead. But that, I wouldn't. He hasn't earned it. What I would do is, hey, look, we think you're better. Let's do a 2-year or 3-year deal. And you still get your chance to hit the jackpot. And he'll get a significant raise.
Yeah. Well,
I think especially, and part of that too is because Claypool's gone.
Yeah.
So now who are you going to have? Who do you got? You don't have anybody after DJ.
Yeah. See, that's why I put up my, I'm going to over the next several months just put up on X, and I'll introduce it to some of our barroom shows. Just my kind of projected big roster moves during the off season. And one of the things that I did was I think, and I learned this from you, Greg, that the Bears need a big wide receiver. So they'll probably either try to draft one, but there could be some available in free agency. Perhaps Noah Brown, who plays with the Dolphins, the Texans. It's Cedric Wilson, who's a 6'2" wide receiver, plays with the Dolphins.
Yeah, Cedric Wilson can't run, and he's getting older.
Yeah. Okay. So Noah Brown is a candidate, 6'2", 6'3", big blocking guy.
Obviously Marvin Harrison is a pretty big dude, but this draft is loaded, and I don't have the list in front of me, loaded with some big receivers.
Yeah. Keon Coleman is a great candidate.
Down at Florida State. Yes. So you can get one. I cannot see. I know there's people who think they got to use a high first round pick on Harrison. If you look at the last time a receiver went number 1, that was Keyshawn Johnson. Okay, the next highest one after that was number 4, and that was Sammy Watson, and he flopped. And that was about 12, 13 years ago or whatever. And then after that, they start coming at 5. Chase went at 5. And so it's like in 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're taking quarterbacks, offensive line, defensive line. And then you get to, now, could somebody break the mold this year? Of course they could. But that's just, when you look at trends, that's the way the trends have been.
Mm-hmm. Tony brings up Xavier Legette from South Carolina, somebody who I just started studying. He looks like
I haven't looked at him yet.
Yeah, I think he's being tossed around as a second round type project, but I think after the All-Star games, if he is, because I think he's a junior still.
Washington's got 2 big receivers.
Yeah,
that are pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Texas has got 1.
It's going to be fascinating this offseason, and I've said this probably the last 2 seasons, but it's going to be so fascinating to see what Ryan Poles does. This is the offseason where he puts it all together, or he doesn't, and then we can safely start to assume that maybe he isn't over his head. A couple of more questions regarding this upcoming game against the Detroit Lions, Greg. I really, really was wrong about Dan Campbell. I think he's a good head football coach. I've studied him enough now, and I know that he has the ultimate respect from his players. And I guess, winning does that, right? But he's preached a winning formula. What are your thoughts about the Lions head coach?
Well, I think long time ago we talked about him. When I was with the Giants, we drafted him.
Oh, that's right.
Texas A&M.
Yes.
And so I knew him as just a young player his first couple years in the league. And he didn't say boo. He was very quiet. So now, you see him once he got into coaching, totally different personality.
Mm-hmm.
So the person I saw and what he is now aren't the same thing. But I think that, number one, he played in the league for a while. Mm-hmm. So he knows what it's like for the players. And I think he just knows how to push the right buttons.
Yes.
And really that's the key. And he worked for Parcells for a while. And
mm-hmm.
I think and Parcells drafted him, but he worked for Parcells for a while. I think he learned a lot from that because Bill, there's this theory in coaching that you got to treat every player alike. And
mm-hmm.
Bill throws that theory out the window. You treat every player differently.
Yeah.
You find out where the pressure point is, and you work at that pressure point. And
mm-hmm.
You might have to love one guy, you might have to kick the ass of another guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't treat them alike.
Yeah. I totally agree with that philosophy. People are different, and they should be treated differently.
I mean, a perfect example was Devin. And we told Dave Tobe, because Dave Tobe coaches hard now.
Uh-huh.
And, we did a ton of research on Devin. And it came out that, he was kind of shy, which you could see early in his career. And he didn't respond well to being yelled at.
Mm-hmm.
So, you had to put your arm around him and love him. And I remember, and everybody, the whole plan for that draft was to find a way to get Devin Hester. That was the key
mm-hmm.
to that draft, even though we didn't take him until the second round. But it was funny because I still kid Tobe about it. So after we get him, we just remind Tobe, Tobe, he's a little different. And he goes, "You're gonna fucking tell me how to coach him too?"
What a classic moment that was.
But
I love it.
And Tobe is great. But Tobe was great. I'll tell you what, that's the guy who should be a head coach in the National Football League.
People in the chat are saying that. Yeah. Why hasn't
I love the guy. And now I think, he's 61, 62. I think he knows it's passed him by.
That's too bad. It really is, because I would love to give a guy like that. Yeah, one of the things that when I was looking at Campbell, one of the things that the Bears have not done in a long time is hire a head coach who has NFL playing experience. How much of a big deal do you think that is?
I think it really depends on the person.
Okay.
And what his, look at Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell was, I don't know if he was ever a coordinator, but he was a position coach. And then he goes to Miami, and he was an interim head coach for half a season. And that taught him a lot. So, but what surprised me, and I thought might be his downfall, and he was, people could say what they want about Flus and how bad this team looks and everything else. His first 2 Detroit teams were horrible. Okay. And, he gets rid of his offensive coordinator and he's calling the plays. He never called plays before in his life. And then last year, and they started last year 1-6.
Right.
And then after that, they turned around. It's like, let's not jump to conclusions too fast. Because I guarantee you, if this is 2 years ago and we're sitting in Detroit doing this show, they're screaming, we want the son of a bitch fired.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to give these guys some time. I know, with all of the losing we've had in Chicago, it's very difficult to ask Bears fans to be patient, but we really need to be. What do you think about what Creighton Wolfong is saying here about Marcus Freeman for head coach? Do you think Marcus Freeman has the pedigree to become an NFL head coach?
Not yet. Way too young.
Yeah, I think so too. I'd love to see him in a coordinator role.
He's another guy we drafted, Did you know
I didn't know that. No.
He was one of my biggest disappointments. He was a bust. In fact, I know some people on the we got him in the 5th round. Here's a guy who was like 6'1 3/4, 237, 238 pounds, ran a sub 4.5. Could jump out of the building. I mean, his numbers were crazy good. And you think this guy's going to be a player. By the end of training camp, the coaching staff didn't even want him on the practice squad. Just let him go. And he ended up, and they left a little sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
So when he was first the DC at Notre Dame, and so I'm watching closely, and I thought he did a good job. And then by the end, when you saw how he interact, he found his niche. His niche wasn't a player. His niche was coaching. His people skills are excellent.
Players love him.
So, but is he ready for the NFL? No. I mean, he's only been he's a real young college head coach. He's only like 36, 37 years old. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, down the line, he's one of those guys that if you are in the front office of any NFL coach, you've got a file of guys who could potentially be head coaches in 3 to 5 years or whatever it is. And his name is in that file, but he's definitely not ready yet to be a NFL head coach.
No,
maybe a coordinator.
He's had his blunders in some games and miscues, but he seems to learn from his mistakes. Unsure if he tried to hit a home run when Tommy Reese left and went down to Alabama as the offensive coordinator. He went after 2 people trying to hit a home run, and he didn't get either one of them. And then he gave it to the tight end coach, and that might not have been the best move. And the one part, the one coach they went after was Utah's OC. I think his name is Logan. And the buyout was just enormous. So, it was a no-win situation, so they couldn't do it. And the other guy was the Kansas State coordinator who played quarterback at Kansas State. He's an alum. He wasn't leaving. But, the guy he's got now is inexperienced. I don't think he does a bad job. I'm personally disappointed in Sam Hartman. I don't think Sam Hartman's very good at all. But I didn't think so last year either. He's got a noodle arm, and he's got a very inexperienced. They got a talented but inexperienced wide receiver core there. They're playing with a bunch of freshmen, and they got to learn how to play the game.
Yeah, they do have a lot of young talent there, guys that are going to be drafted in the NFL in 2 or 3 years. What do you think about that running back, Eston? Boy, the guy runs with Estime. Guy runs with
he's the best
power.
back in the draft.
Yeah, do you? Wow, that's saying a lot.
And he probably won't be. I think he's going to run faster than people think because you don't see him get caught when he gets in the open field. But he runs hard, and he catches the ball real well. Out of the backfield. He's the guy that's a day one starter the day you pick him. I don't care what round you take him in. He's starting for you right away.
All right, let's end the show with your thoughts on this Bears-Lions game. I am, as a fan, I'm hoping that they win. My fan part of me says they're going to upset the Detroit Lions, but as a realist, I think the Bears are going to get blown out by Detroit in Detroit. Your thoughts?
Well, as a realist, if your thoughts come true, that could be the beginning of the end.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so I like the enthusiasm they've played with the last few weeks. And I'm hoping, they've had a 10-day wait, so they've been able to put together a pretty good game plan. Justin's got to be on. I mean, obviously the defense has got to play strong, and they got to pressure Goff. The way you pressure Goff is you hit Goff in the mouth a couple times, it's all over.
Yeah.
Same with Kirk Cousins. Then they shy away. So you got to put pressure on Goff, and then Justin's got to play the way he played in Washington.
Right. Exactly. If you're Flus, do you blitz a little bit more often early in the game to get that intimidation factor? Whatever blitz packages you have dialed up for this particular Lions team, do you try to employ those early to get that intimidation factor going?
Yeah, I'm not an X and O guy. The one thing I've noticed they've been doing, and even early, is blitzing Kyler Gordon.
Yeah, I love that.
Edge.
Yes,
where he doesn't have a sack, he's gotten some pressures. Probably the most effective blitzing linebacker they had was Edmonds, and he's out. So it's kind of hard to say. I mean, his main philosophy is rush with 4 and cover with 7 and maybe send 5. But it's I think it's going to be a lot closer game than people think, because I think it is a trap game for Detroit. I think they think it's going to be a cakewalk, and we'll just see what happens. I mean, put it this way. Next week, we'll either have a good show or a lousy show.
They're all good shows, Greg. We might be down.
Okay. We'll have a smiley face show or a grin face show.
Or a very grumpy.
Come on. I don't know how to do.
Exactly. Well, I will be rooting for the Bears. I never say die. But I am, I did a video on this Lions team and did a lot of research for that video, and that video is available on the Barroom Network's Twitter or X feed. Take a look at it. I'll post it up on our YouTube channel as well. I'm really proud of the way the video turned out, but the Lions have scared me a bit. Now, one of the good things, though, Greg, is that they have
got a good team.
Yeah, their defense is not playing really well. They have allowed 38 points in 2 of their last 3 games. Now, both of those were on the road against good teams like the Chargers and the Ravens. Those were teams. But that defense, and they have 21 sacks this season, Greg, but 18 of them came in 3 games. And so they've had games where the pass pressure was non-existent. So this team does have deficiencies, and hopefully the Bears will take advantage of that. We'll see.
They got to come out like they did in Washington and be very, very physical. Because let's be honest. Did any of us think they were really going to beat Washington? Washington was playing pretty good then.
Yeah, I agree.
And the game was in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, this team seems to play better on the road than they do at home.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thank you to everyone in the chat room. On our YouTube channel, we had over 200 people visit us and hundreds more on X. Really appreciate it. Make sure you visit the Swift Sports Network, Bears Country Podcast, Productions channel on YouTube. They do great work as well. And I'm scrolling around to see if there's any other podcast network that I can send you guys to. If I've missed out on anyone, let me know, and then I will give you a plug on our next show. Thank you all very much. And Greg, I'll see you next week, okay?
Okay, buddy. Talk to you later.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, what happened?
Thank you.